It never gets old. I just enjoy watching that mess. I just watch everything falling apart. And did anybody notice that the dog brought a car door up on the porch? It's a car door. You had to have heard that come up the steps at least, or at least come off of the car. Well, I welcome you to the lake and to the final chapter of our Dress the Mess. We've been working this Dress the Mess. And when we get into what I want to do is I want to ask a question to start off this. Have you ever made a mess messier? Sure. Oh yeah, okay, I got some nods. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. No matter how hard we try, the mess just gets messier. We're trying to clean it. Whenever we try, this gets worse. I was thinking about several years ago, I was helping paint inside a church, and they put some new bathrooms upstairs, and they needed some painting on the wall, and they said, want me to paint? So I'm in there painting. And when I can get in a room and paint by myself, I'm okay. And it's no big deal. You roll it and you cut it, and they hadn't even put the floor down. They just got the subfloor. They didn't put the tile or nothing down. I'm safe. I don't even like to get paint on my hands, so I'm not even thinking about dripping paint. And I'm up on this ladder, and I'm just painting away, and I turn, and it how your elbow will catch a paint bucket. Oh, you know that? Everything goes in slow motion, and if you had go-go gadget arms, you could reach it and grab it and bring it back, but it just, when it hits, and it just, I learned real quick, you can't wipe up paint. It's just like, and when you pull this way, it goes that way. And it was just spreading. It was going everywhere. I mean, not that it splattered up on the wall, but I can fix that. But this, it can't scoop it up. If I could just scoop it up and throw it in the toilet, I'd be okay. But I couldn't. It's just this mess is getting bigger, and it was only like a half a gallon. It looked like I dropped a whole 5-gallon bucket there in that bathroom because it spread. I made the mess messier. And in our lives, we can make a mess messier. Whether it's a financial mess, whether it's a relational mess, whether there's something going on in our family, something going on in our marriage, whether it's in a profession or academically, we can make a mess messier when we try to fix it the wrong way. When we try to fix it the wrong way. Because whether we inherited the mess, whether we created the mess, whether we found ourselves in the middle of a mess, one thing that we make messes messier is because of this one thing. Every mess comes with some bad options. There's always some bad options. There's always bad options, all right, if I want to get out of debt, I'll just borrow some more money. Well, if I want to get out of this lie, I'll just tell another lie. If I don't want anybody to find out, I'll just hide the evidence. What I'll do is I'll send them another text and make it sound like that first one was a mistake, that it wasn't supposed to go to them anyway. I'm sorry, that wasn't meant for you. That was meant for somebody. Well, I autocorrect. They did that. That's not what I meant to say. These bad options will make the mess messier. Because we know that we can avoid some messes. If we just use some common sense, we can avoid messes. But it's when we're in the middle of a mess, when the mess has happened and we find ourselves in the middle of a mess, we're already in this mess and we can't unmake the mess, then we realize that this mess is going to give us some bad options, that this mess is going to give us some temptations. We'll be tempted to choose the wrong thing to try to fix the mess, and it just makes the mess messier. I want to illustrate this with, I consider it one of my favorite stories in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament. I really like and I enjoy reading this story over and over in the Old Testament. If you grew up in church, you've probably heard this story, you recognize it. Try not to get too far ahead of it. But this story, it's about the story of David. Before he becomes king, it's all about David before he takes the role of being the king of Israel. The prophet Samuel has come to David's daddy's house, Jesse. He's come to his house and he's told Jesse that I've been called to your house, that I'm going to anoint one of your sons as to be the next king of Israel. And he goes through all of Jesse's sons, all the way down to David, the youngest one. And David is chosen. David, the youngest one, a shepherd boy, is chosen as the king, the next king of Israel. Now the problem is not that David is a boy. The problem is Israel already has a king that Samuel has selected. Now Israel has two kings. They have the adult king, Saul, and they have the shepherd boy, King David. And when David's chosen as king, it didn't go to his head. He went back out to tend sheep. He's just a boy. It's not a big deal. It's not to him at the time. Tap on the head, you're going to be next king. Okay, I got to go tend some sheep for my daddy. So people don't even know who David is until the day he makes his name known to all of Israel. He goes to visit his brothers. They're in Israel's army, and he goes to where they're having this battle with the Philistines. And he gets up and he sees the army, and his brothers and his entire army are terrified because across the valley there's this giant Goliath standing out there that's terrifying and taunting God's army. So David marches out into the valley with a sling and a few smooth stones, and he kills Goliath. And immediately, David is like an overnight sensation. Everybody's talking about David. Everybody's cheering David. Everybody's talking about the heroics of David, and nobody's talking that much about King Saul. When they have cheers, when they come into town, it's like, Saul has killed his thousands. David his tens of thousands. I mean, Saul has the title king, but David has shifted the position of being the leader of the Israelite nation. Possibly their next king. David's gained popularity, and with all his successes, Saul is becoming jealous of David. And he's trying to put a plan together. How can I control him? How can I shut this down? How can I stop his popularity from growing? I'll offer my daughter, Merab, to be his wife. That way, he'll be my son-in-law. And I can influence him through my daughter, and I can have some control over David. This won't get out of hand any further. But David turns down the offer. He says, but king, I'm just a shepherd boy. My family's not even important in Israel. We're shepherds. I'm not worthy to be a part of the king's family. David turns him down. See, David's not just the giant killer, and he's not just a great leader. He's David the humble. He's so humble. His humility is spread that he turned down the offer to be a part of the king's family. To have it all. Man, he's so humble. And people love David. His popularity is growing. But Saul's jealousy is also growing. Got to put a stop to this. In the meantime, Saul has a younger daughter. Her name is Michal. And Michal is attracted to David. And Saul catches this. He says, I'll try this again. Hey, David, how about if I offer my younger daughter, Michal? But she comes with a price. David's attracted to her too, so he's willing to get, what's the price? You have to kill 100 Philistines. And the whole time Saul was thinking, well, I'll just let the Philistines get rid of my problem. Because there's no way that David and his little band of guys that hang around with him, there's no way that they can go defeat 100 Philistines. They'll kill him. So David says, I accept the offer. But he doesn't kill 100 Philistines. He kills 200 Philistines. For Michal, to prove his loyalty to the king, his loyalty to the king, and his love for Michal. He kills 200 Philistines. And you would think this would really make things better, but it makes things worse. Now there's a great divide between Saul and David. David has to be stopped. Now he's a huge threat to the kingdom. David is a huge threat to Saul's kingdom. Not God's kingdom, but Saul's kingdom. Because Saul's plan for his kingdom is for his son, Jonathan. Jonathan is going to be the next king. It's going to be a dynasty from my family, from me to Jonathan and his child, and on and on. But now David, as long as David's alive, David's a threat to the king. David's a threat to the king's kingdom, and David is a threat to the king's dynasty. And when we read in Scriptures, the Scriptures actually tell us that Saul would be an enemy of David for the rest of his life. Just the mess. David has a big mess in his life, and it's not his fault. It's not his fault at all. He's found himself in a big mess. He never wanted to be king. He wasn't trying to be king. He was just selected. The whole thing with Goliath, out there in the valley, in the battle, he was just serving God. All these campaigns he was leading the armies in and winning, he was just doing what he was asked to do. He never wanted to be a part of the king's family, but now he is. And no matter what David does, no matter what David thinks is right, the right thing to do, the mess gets messier. So much so that it gets to the point that Saul loses it. And one day at dinner in the palace, he grabs a spear and throws it at David, trying to kill him right there in the palace. So David runs for his life. He leaves the palace, leaves everybody behind. He's an outlaw now. He's running out into the desert to get as far away from Saul as he possibly can. That's why I encourage people. You need to read your Bibles. Because there's some amazing things happening in the Bible. This is like one of the greatest movies ever. I mean, if you think the story is interesting, it's about to get a little bit better. So let's just pick up the story where this all leads up to today. It's 1 Samuel chapter 24, and it starts in verse 1, and this is what happens. It says, after Saul returned from pursuing the Philistines. So again, it just seems like all through the Old Testament, the Israelites and the Philistines are fighting. Every time you turn around, you had Goliath, and now you got a little bit later, you got the fight that Saul's chasing out the Philistines. They've attacked Israel, so he's chasing them away. And after he's pursued him, he comes back and he was told that David is in the desert of En-Gedi. If you've never been to the desert of En-Gedi, this is what it looks like. That's the desert of En-Gedi. That's the Dead Sea up there, and then that's other land on the other side. But that's the desert of En-Gedi. It's not flat like we think. It's mountainous. But there's nothing really growing there that much except down in the valleys where some streams run through. And this is where David is camped. That's where they think they found David. They think they have him cornered. And so Saul took 3,000 able young men from all Jerusalem, and he set out to look for David and his men near the crags of the wild goats. The crags of the wild goats is the name of a spring that's running through En-Gedi. And it's apparent that David has set up camp there at that spring, and Saul has decided, we're going to go get him. I'm going to take 3,000 men with me, and we're going to end this problem right now. I'm going to take care of it myself. It says it's talking about Saul and his men, they came to the sheep pens along the way. A cave was there, and Saul went in to relieve himself. All right, now for some reason, the writer has to tell us that Saul had to go to the bathroom. I'm thinking this was for middle schoolers. Because they're going to get bored reading the Bible till they read about somebody going to the bathroom, and then they're going to be locked in. Well, this is something about a bathroom. He went to the bathroom. I mean, to us, this doesn't seem important at all. Why would you share that Saul has to go to the bathroom? This is the king of Israel. Why do we need to know this? This is not important until you read the next sentence. David and his men were far back in the cave. This is getting interesting. See, apparently, David's men were camped in that area. And one of his scouts said, hey, Saul is coming. So instead of David trying to outrun Saul and his army, he said, let's just scatter up into the mountains. Y'all hide in some caves and we'll just let Saul go right on by. So David and some of his best warriors are in this cave, and Saul comes into the same cave. I mean, what are the odds? Think about it. What are the odds of all the caves in this desert that Saul walks into one where David's at? This has to be a God moment. Think it has to be. God had to organize it. God has provided a solution. Right here, God has provided a solution to David's mess. He brought the mess to David. Even the men with David hiding in the cave, this is how they saw it. They recognized it. This is what they said. This is the men that were with David in the cave. They said, this is the day the Lord spoke of when he said to you, I will give your enemy into your hands for you to deal with as you wish. See, they are aware that Saul has an obsession to kill David. They're well aware of that, but they also are aware that one day David is going to be their king. And the one obstacle between David being their king and Saul, God just provided a solution or an option to David's mess. Can you imagine the conversation that's going on in the back of the cave when they realize that's Saul up there? David. Imagine walking out the cave and there's 3,000 soldiers there. There's 3,000 soldiers. They saw Saul. That worked hard, but they watched Saul. They saw Saul go into the cave. But you emerge. Oh, think about this, David. If you emerge with Saul's head in your hand, you'll be king. Immediately they'll bow down and worship you and celebrate you as king. David, how could David possibly pass up on this opportunity? How could he pass up this option to address his mess? How could he walk away and not do this? Now let's just pause the story for just a moment. I mean, we'll get back to it, but I just want to pause and step back and start with this one. At the root of most of our messes, whether it's a financial mess, a relational mess, whether it's a mess that we created or we found ourselves in or we accidentally get caught up in this mess, at the root of about every mess that we have is a breakdown in virtue. There's a breakdown in virtue. There's a breakdown in integrity. There's a breakdown in being honest. There's a breakdown in patience. There's a breakdown in self-control. There's a breakdown in goodness. And when we ignore virtue, integrity in a relationship, honesty in a profession, self-control in academics, we make a mess. And we'll make it messier. Because you can't clean up a breakdown in virtue with another breakdown in virtue. Two wrongs don't make a right. Two messes don't make an unmess. I don't know if that's a word or not, but there will be today. Two messes don't make an unmess. I'm in debt up to my eyeballs. I'll just borrow more money. I've lied and got in this, so I'll just lie again to get out of it. I'll hide the evidence and nobody will ever find out. I'll just have a friend vouch for me. This is what I think we're trying to understand in our life, is that every mess comes with some bad options. We've already discovered that. Every mess comes with some bad options, and those bad options always involve a breakdown in virtue. They always involve a breakdown in integrity and honesty. Self-control. And David, this is where David is about to do the same thing. It's about to do the same thing. 1 Samuel 24, verse 4. Then David crept up unnoticed. David's a soldier. He's got his sword. This is his wheelhouse. Saul will never hear him coming. Saul will never know what happened. There'll be a tug on the hair and a last breath. That's it. But instead of killing Saul, he cut off a corner of Saul's robe. So I read this and I'm like, okay, something's happened from the time he was back in the back of the cave with the soldiers and their encouragement to go kill Saul and the time he gets there. And I'm thinking, all these thoughts are going through his head. What was he? As he's creeping up closer, I'm about to become king. Just a few more steps and I'll be king. I'm about to kill God's chosen king. I'm about to kill my wife's daddy, my children's grandfather. What am I thinking? I'm about to make my mess messier. If I kill the king, if I sneak up and kill the king, then this is going to be my story forever. This is how people are going to remember me forever. Because, like we would do, when we start thinking and processing that way, we try to look down the road. What's it going to be like a couple of years down the road? And I'm trying to think for David and his story and what's going on. I'm like, grandfather, tell us again how you became king. Well, your great-grandfather went to the cave to use the bathroom. It was really dark. And I snuck up behind him and I slit his throat. That's how I became king. Oh, grandfather, you're so brave. Or maybe just a few nights later down the road or something, and Michael's serving David dinner, and Michael says, David, dear, what happened to my father? Well, we're really not sure. They found his body in the cave with his throat slit. Really don't know why. See, David's about to choose an option that he's going to regret for the rest of his life. Even though this option is justified. Because Saul's out to kill him. Even though everybody in that cave expected David kill Saul. But instead of killing Saul, he cut off a piece of his robe. Now, when I've heard that part about cutting off a piece of robe, they've always thought, man, that was awesome. That was a great on David's part. Sneak up there and just do that. No, what you have to understand when you read this passage through here, it says that when David did that, cut the robe, it says he was guilt-stricken. To David, that was the worst thing he could have done. To David, to damage anything that the king owned was to damage the king. It was against the king. This is the Lord's anointed. And he goes back, he cuts off that corner of the robe, and he goes back to his men in verse 6, and he says this. The Lord forbid that I should do such a thing to my master, the Lord's anointed, or lay my hands on him, for he is the anointed of the Lord. Guys, I almost forgot. God placed Saul. God placed Saul. I'm not going to be the one that replaces what God placed. I'm not taking that on me. I'm not going to do that. I am not going to kill the king. And with these words, David sharply rebuked his men and did not allow them to attack Saul. They had already said, when David came back and Saul was still, they were getting ready to go kill Saul themselves. If you're not going to do it, we're going to do this because this is an option. This is to get rid of the mess. This is to get rid of the problem. And David stopped and it says, and Saul left the cave and went his way. This is a pretty good story, so it'd be a great movie. If somebody made this a movie, this is incredible because we're just like sucked into it. But it gets better. Because as Saul leaves the cave, he works his way down the path back to his donkey because he won't ride a horse because that makes him too tall. And the enemy will shoot him first. So he rides a donkey, which makes him shorter than his men, so they'll get killed first. This is how Saul was thinking because he's prideful. This is why he lost the kingdom. It's a lot of back history there. But he works his way back down and gets to his men, and they're getting ready to head off and track down David. And then it says, then David went out of the cave and called to Saul. Oh, Saul! Before you leave, just so you know, God delivered you to me, and my men, they urged me to kill you. They urged me to kill you, but I chose not to. And not only did I not kill you, I defended you, Saul. I would not let my men do it. I said, this is what I said. I said to my men, I said, I will not lay my hand on my Lord because he is the Lord's anointed. You may not be acting like the Lord's anointed right now, but I'm not going to be the one to judge you. I'm not going to be the one to kill you. David said, I'm not going to be your judge. And he says this, may the Lord judge between you and me, and may the Lord avenge the wrongs you have done to me. Saul, you've done some wrongs to me. You've done everything to try to stop me. You've done some wrongs to me, but my hand will not touch you. All right, he's David the giant killer. He's David the great leader. He's David the humble. And now he's David the merciful. See, what David is saying, it basically brings it down to this. I have all these bad options to my mess, but I'm choosing virtue over hurt you. See how I did that? Virtue over hurt you. David did something unexpected. David did something completely unheard of in the war and bloodshed of that time. Saul even says, what enemy, what person has their enemy right there in their presence and lets them go? Then he says this in verse 17, you are more righteous than I. You are a better man than me. I'd never done that. I never expected anybody to do that. And it says that Saul and his army headed back to Jerusalem. Just a little side note. 7 chapters later in Samuel, a random arrow fired by a Philistine pierces Saul's armor and Saul dies. And David becomes king. This is what I want to make sure that we don't miss today. As we said earlier, every mess comes with some bad options. And if we choose a bad option, we will make the mess messier. The reality in life is this. The mess that you're currently experiencing, a financial mess, a relational mess, a professional mess, whatever mess it is, whatever's going on in your life that's painful, it's complicated, it's hurting, it's a season of your life you just don't really enjoy at all because of the mess that you're in. Whatever that mess is, all of our messes eventually get reduced to 1 or 2 sentences. Everything that we're experiencing in this mess will reduce to 1 or 2 sentences. For example, maybe this is your mess. And you come out of the mess and somebody asks you what was so well. 5 years ago, I went through a tough divorce. See, all the fighting, all the arguing, all the bickering back and forth, and all the struggles and the disappointments in the relationship that led to a divorce is reduced to 1 sentence. 4 years ago, I had to declare bankruptcy. All the loss, all the pain, all the suffering, and all the sleepless nights, and the dealing with the banks and the lawyers and stuff, and all that trial and tribulation and stuff is reduced to 1 sentence. 7 years ago, my wife and I were in a very difficult time and we were separated. 1 sentence. 4 years ago, I was arrested. 1 sentence. 2 years ago, I dropped out of school. 1 sentence. Everything that's going on in a mess, everything that's going on in a mess at the time can be reduced to 1 or 2 sentences. Because we're all messes. We understand that. We're all messes. I know a mess when I see one because I am one. We're all messes. But please understand this. The mess is not your life story. It's not your life story. The mess is a mess. That's what it is. It's a mess. And you can't unmess the mess. You can't unscramble an egg. You can't relive history. The mess is the mess. But your response to the mess becomes a permanent part of the story of your life. Your response. How you respond to the mess. How you come out of the mess. How you choose your option. Which option would you choose? To get away with something, to lie about something, to borrow even more, or would you choose integrity and honesty? I told my spouse the truth. I turned myself in. I apologized to my family. I contacted the company, found out how much I owed them, and vowed and promised and worked out a plan to pay them every penny back. We cut up our credit cards. What story do I want to tell about my mess? The 1 sentence or a life of integrity and honesty, self-control, goodness? So remember David. David with the option. He's creeping up behind Saul. Here's his option, but it's a bad option. He kills Saul. And it goes to his mind. What story do I want to tell? What story do I want to tell when people say, David, how did you become king? I did what no one expected me to do. I didn't do what I could get away with. I chose virtue. I chose integrity. I chose patience. I chose goodness. I trusted my Father in heaven to take care of this mess. I trusted my Father in heaven. 7 chapters later, David becomes king. How do I want to address the mess in my life? And that's our challenge. When I'm calling a mess, how do I want to choose the right option? Virtue. Not just to get away with it, because we never get away with it, because it's always a bad option, just makes the mess messier. What story do I want to tell coming out of my mess? Let's pray. God, we all realize that we're messes. I mean, that's obvious because our life is a struggle. Everything just doesn't fall into place. There's always this challenge and then there's this mess, and I'll try to fix this, but I can't, and it makes it messier, and I find myself in a big mess. And sometimes it feels like my entire life is going to be a mess. But it's not my life. It's just a mess. Through this series, I've learned that I'm not the only person with a mess, because we're all messes. How Jesus handled the mess. He didn't condemn anybody that was a mess. He asked them to follow him. I also learned that he's the light of the world. He can show me out of this darkness. When I'm trapped in this cave and it's pitch dark and it feels like it's all closing in around me, the rest of my life is not going to be in this cave. Because there's a God who loves me. He sent His Son to die for me, to give the light of the world. And if I turn my life over to Him, He would lead me out of this mess. He would show me a way out. And in the world that we live in, there's always messes. And I'm always tempted with all kinds of options. Here's an easy way out. Here's a quick fix. Here's just borrow a little bit more. Just tell another lie. It's not going to matter. It's just another lie. But that's not how I want to live my life. I might be faced with that in this moment, but my life, when people ask me, how did that turn out? I want to say I chose virtue. That I was honest. That I stood on integrity. I stood on a foundation of love that you placed inside of me. I had this faith that you, God, I trust you. I trusted God to lead me out of the mess. God, this is the story that I want to tell. This is the life that I want to lead, and I want to be in a position in my life that when someone else comes to me and they're in the middle of a mess, I can say, oh, let me tell you how we can get you out of that mess, that God loves you, that God, let me share with you how I came out of the mess. It's going to be hard, but you got to choose the right option. You can't choose the bad option because you're going to be in another mess. And that's what we've been given as followers of Jesus Christ. We've been given this opportunity to address the mess in our lives by trusting God, but then help someone address their mess by sharing the love of God to them. So God, today, that's how I want to live my life going forward. That's what I want to do. I want to trust you. I want to rely on you because I count on you, because you've led me out of these messes. And I know tomorrow there could be another mess. But I'm trusting you to help me address the mess. God, we praise you for how much you love us. We celebrate this life that you've given us. And we worship you for who you are, what you've done for us through Jesus. It's in your Son's name we pray.